good morning from a floor in Vietnam, specifically in Hanoi. In this particular video, I'm going to share with you a bunch of photos that I've taken in my week in Hanoi at the moment. However, I will go through and narrate each image and tell you why I took that photo and my thought process in general. Because whenever I share photos, I generally don't do that all too often, and I think I've had enough requests now, so I will do exactly that in this video. So in this particular scene, I noticed two things. So we have some nice negative space on the right hand side that's been lit, and we have a bit more detail on the left hand side with the two guys sitting down having a chat. Pretty simple photo. I split it right down the middle between the detail and the negative space, and all I was waiting for is for something to come in from the right hand side and fill that space, ideally a bicycle or an interesting character of some sort. In this particular case, a lady on a scooter came through and it balanced the image out quite nicely. In this scene, what's really caught my eye is the giant purple thing that's hanging down on the right hand side, and it's silhouetting the guy that's sitting in front of it. And this is creating the negative space and the blob of color that I typically look for, and is being balanced by the mess and the chaos that's happening on the left side of the image, again creating a busy side of the image and a slightly cleaner side of the image with a strong color and source of light. What initially caught my eye is the vast open area with all the scooters going past, and the photo I was going for is the scooter in the right side of the frame with the background a little bit blurred out, so shooting at around f2 and a very warm tone in general. There was also a bunch of scooters going from left to right, and they used the slower shutter speed of around 1/30th to give a bit of a motion blur and create a slightly different image from this particular scene. Now in this particular scene you see a pipe on the right hand side. That's actually a grill, and it was billowing out smoke that was covering this whole area with a nice haze. The guy on the bike pulled up just in front of me, which created the subject that I wanted, and then I just needed something on the left side to balance things out. And the woman on the scooter that's coming towards us, she managed to do just that. And finally, if you look in the building in the back, the light is on and you see the orange door, and that just added a bit more visual weight on that side, plus the highlight area of the pavement, and overall the image balances out really nice. I love the colors, and I just like this particular composition. And finally, from day one, this is probably my favorite shot, or one of my favorite shots from the trip. We're walking through the old market, and I noticed this collection of buildings as well as the cover for the market. The light was coming in from the back, so exactly how I want to, and there was a nice balance of colors, warm tones and the cold tones of the sky. All I needed is one subject, but in particular a person walking through. And as you can see, right in the middle is a purple sheet that's hanging down, and to have that person's head in front of the sheet, therefore creating a bit of separation and a bit of a silhouette, if you like. On the second day, we photographed a very famous train spot. However, rather than going for the typical shot, I wanted something that felt a little bit more immersive. So I used a wide-angle 28mm prime and a slower shutter speed of around 1/50th of a second. I then panned with the train as it came past and focused on the front of it, and having the guy on the bottom right really gives you an idea of how close the train runs to the people and to everything else. The weather that day was very gloomy, however that worked for this type of shot. We've got the train in the distance, we've got a lady on a bicycle in a traditional hat on the bottom, you have the buildings either side framing everything, and you have a good source of light from the sky as well as a bit of negative space at the top and at the bottom to balance out all the details. We then made our way onto the bridge, and even though there's a sea of scooters coming towards you, if you wait long enough, you can get a pretty quiet patch. And I wanted to get one person on one scooter without anything else on the bridge. It took a while, but I managed to get it. Now, this was a wide angle lens to make you feel like you're physically standing there, and I wanted the person towards the left side of the frame, with the right side of the frame being devoted only to the road and the bridge and everything else. Underneath the bridge is a market, and whilst walking around and exploring, I saw this guy sitting in between these two curtains with a very white wall behind him. Nothing too complicated, a simple framing shot, and it looks alright. Last but not least, as we were heading back, saw this lady standing there waiting for a taxi. She had a very clean black outfit with the traditional hat. Now, I was behind the fence, so I had to use the fence as a way of framing her. Also, having the guy sitting on a scooter in the back added a nice element. I wish the tuk-tuk to the left side of the frame wasn't there, but it's not the end of the world. This is definitely one of the most interesting photos I've taken, and completely by accident. We were actually driving somewhere else when James or Jordan pointed out the power plant in the background that looked a bit like a spaceship. Then we saw this path leading all the way up to it, so pulled the van over, jumped out, and as we got closer we've noticed a farmer with the cows standing in the middle of the path and his bicycle right there. You'd think all of this was staged. It wasn't. It was absolutely insane. Honestly speaking, there's nothing too technical about this particular photo, as everything was kind of already done for us by the scene and the light. Now, if you simply just turned around and walked back a few steps, you would have seen this church, and also the animals in the foreground as well added an extra element to the frame. Again, there's nothing particularly technical about this photo, as everything is kind of there in front of you. It's very much a postcard scene that's a point and shoot kind of a composition. Moving on to the following day, we went back onto the bridge. However, this time I wanted to get a similar photo but at a longer focal length, specifically telephoto of around 135. Also, there were a lot more people on the bridge this time, so I wanted the subject on the left side in focus and everything else falling out of focus as it goes further down the road. After that, we headed back down into the market, and after wandering around a bit, I came across this composition which I loved. You have the bridge in the background, you have the market to the left side, and the mid-bottom right bit has got a ton of good light in it. It was a case of setting the composition and just waiting for the right subject. In the first scene, there were two interesting subjects. However, in the second photo that you're seeing right now, this is a bit more interesting, because for this image I used a wider lens and I went much lower to the ground compared to the previous one, which was around 50mm at eye level, and this just gives a bit of a different take on the same location. After that, I walked around the corner and I noticed the green, blue and orange sheets hanging down. I always look for these bold colors, especially if there's negative space, because they're very good anchors to start building an image from. Now, after about waiting for 5 minutes, I saw this guy starting to sweep the area around, and I noticed that his shadow was being cast onto the green sheet, and I tried to get his shadow framed somewhere in the scene. And the photo I ended up with, I actually really like. You have strong colors, you have negative space, you have detail, complementary colors, an interesting subject, and the shadow also framed within the subject itself. And last but not least, this was a very easy contrast type photo. You're standing underneath a bridge, which is a dark area, shooting into the golden light, which is a brighter area, and I just waited for some interesting subjects to come through and create this particular image, which for me finished off the day. If you're finding this video useful and wish to support the channel, then one of the best ways to do so is to check out my little photography book. This book consists of everything I know about photography and everything I've learned over the last decade put into a concise and easy to understand format. Think of this as a photography course without the cost. It covers psychology, mistakes, lessons learned, lighting, composition, color, editing, workflow, and so much more. For more information, see the links in the description, and thank you for your support.